cocaine and alcohol.
Okay. And was there a rock bottom that you hit at some point?
My
Or
rock bottom.
let me change the question. How did it affect your life so you knew you had to stop?
Well, it affected my life in many different ways. The one reason that I felt that I had to stop was because I was running from my father for so long. My father would call me every morning to see if I wanted to go have breakfast, and I said that I was busy working, but meanwhile, I was on my way home to sniff coke in my garage. At 9 o'clock in the morning, I already set my job up, and I was on my way back home.
What job did you have?
I was just a fly-by-night contractor, but I had men working for me. You know, the one thing that my father did raise me was to work for my.
So you had a work ethic.
Yeah,
you showed up.
100%. I always showed up.
You had an addiction.
Correct. I had an addiction that I just let totally take me. It took me out. I never lost track of you have to earn to survive.
Right, but you were lying to people.
I was lying
and you
through my
didn't
teeth.
like that.
Yeah, no.
Through your teeth.
Through my teeth, too. No, I mean, I didn't like the man that I was, but like I said, it started to affect me because my father was calling me every day to go for breakfast. I wasn't able to see my dad. I was lying about everything. I would get out of the shower. I would put a hooded sweatshirt on. I didn't want to look at myself in the mirror. My teeth were rotting away. I was just angry. I was mad at the world. I felt like I was amounting to anything. And truly, I felt like I was dead inside. Many times I drove over the bridge and I was just like, man, if there's a God, please don't let me end up at my coke dealer's house. And 20 minutes later, I'm at my coke dealer's house. And, you know, I started sniffing coke from the minute I woke up to the minute I went to sleep.
You did.
Yeah, because I used to drink to sniff and sniff to drink. So when it got to the point of just running from everything and everyone, you know, I got locked up a couple of times and, you know, just being that guy, and I just knew that I wasn't raised to be this person.
For drugs, for altercation?
Drugs and violence. Okay. You know, nothing serious.
So what changed for you to find this new purpose?
Well, I knew that I wasn't this person.
Okay.
My father raised me with morals and respect. I basically
and
just
by the way, if he found out you were doing drugs, would he have flipped because of his history and what he did?
It's not that he would have flipped. He would have been more disappointed because he raised us different. When we were growing up, I was literally my father's right-hand man. My father used to do wiretaps and have to take the tapes and put them in the lock boxes for court and stuff. So like I used to sit there in the office with him and, you know, partake in this as a little kid, like watching them wiretap from here to Colombia and, you know, the drug bust and all that stuff. Like he'd always come home and show me pictures. He'd come home with, you know, the macked out vans that for the surveillance and all of that. So I don't think that he would flip because flipping wouldn't work with me.
Sure.
I think that he would, you know, and we did have a couple of conversations about it, and I promised him I was done. But on March 26, 2016, I meant it. And ironically, on March 27th, I sat down with him and I opened up. And I told him I was ready and willing to do whatever it took. I had searched for programs. I couldn't afford them. I wasn't going to ask him to do it because I don't feel like I should have put my father in debt. My father didn't have money. And I said that I was ready and willing to do it, no matter what it took, that I was going to go from a zero to a hero. And he looked at me and he said, Michael, if there's one man in this world that could do it, it's you.
So what do you think made you get to that point of wanting to change and wanting to stop? Because for a lot of people, it takes a rock bottom.
Yeah, I mean, my rock bottom was like I felt like I was amounting to anything, and I was amounting to anything. But you know, more importantly is that I wasn't raised to be this kid, and
right.
I think that most addicts are not raised to be who they become.
Right.
And just embarrassed, and I didn't want to run from anybody, and I just wanted to.
You wanted to own up to it.
Yeah, I just wanted to be the man that my father raised me to be.
So how long have you been sober?
I'm sober 8 years.
Wow. And what happens when you feel like you want to go back to
There's
that?
no going back.
You don't. It doesn't occur to you.
Never. I mean, you know, like I've went back to cigarettes. I went. You know, that's the only thing. My only addiction vice would be a cigarette. But again, as far as cocaine and alcohol, it will never go into my body again. I don't need it. I don't want it. I know what it did to me. I know what it, and now in 2024, there is nothing pure. And it's just not worth my life.
No, it's so dangerous.
Everything is, So when I was using, it was a different time.
Yeah.
It was kind of pure.
Now it's really interesting because people can just try it once, and that could be the last time they try anything.
Correct.
And
that's with anything. That's with a Xanax pill.
Yeah.
any type of pill form they're being crushed here
Right.
in the States, and fentanyl is
But
being
it's not
thrown
like
in
when
it.
we were younger where people
No.
would use it recreationally
Correct.
and not think about
Yeah.
it, just take it from the person on the
Yeah.
street.
I've literally sniffed coke with everybody: doctors, lawyers, professors, detectives, FDNY. I've sniffed coke with everybody. It was just the most social thing
Yeah.
to do. You know, it's like everybody would like look down upon the junkie on the corner that's all doped out and who has the lean going. And look at that junkie, but meanwhile they're doing bumps
They're
of
doing
cocaine.
it, yeah.
So drugs are drugs, and drug addiction is drug addiction. It just matters what you're addicted to. But society doesn't label cocaine and alcohol as real drugs.
Yeah.
It's a party drug, and alcohol is accepted by everyone and everything. So that's what made it easier for me. Everywhere
Yeah.
I turned, somebody was partying with me.
Right. They enabled it.
It wasn't like, here's a needle you want to shoot, or here's a crack pipe you want to smoke.
Right.
Because when I was always raised that you have to show up.
Yep.
No matter what's going on, you have to show up for your family. You got to show up for your friends. Shit hits the fan, you better be ready and willing to do whatever it takes. And I always said, like, from seeing the people in the clubs, like, I was always in a nightclub, and you would see people in K-holes and, just a mess, complete mess.
Yeah.
And I always told myself, like, I could never be like that. And no matter what happened for all my party years, whenever something happened and somebody called me, I showed up. And maybe I couldn't talk.
Right.
Maybe I couldn't keep my eyes open, but I was there. And
Did you have to weed out all of those people to make your life easier, or are
well,
you still
it really
friends
wasn't.
with a
It
lot
really
of
wasn't the
other-
people around me. I was going to places where I felt like I was comfortable.
Okay.
Considering the fact that I was running, with as a broken boy, and then when I, started drinking early, and then when I started to go into clubs and bars, I would go to clubs and bars where it was kind of accepted.
Got it.
Where it's dark. Like a lot of bars, like you go into a dark bar that has one bartender and a jukebox, and people are there for 10 hours. Chances are everybody's doing blow.
Right,
You know
right,
what I'm saying? You could only drink so much before
Yeah.
you just and that's where I found myself. But I found myself there all day and all night.
Got
you
it.
know.
Okay, so now talk to me about your love of animals. Where did that start?
So my love of animals started. I remember as like I really, really young. I forget how old I was exactly, but I rescued a cat out of a tailpipe of a car, a little
God.
cat, and pulled him out by his tail. And I called my grandma and I said, "Beppy, I just rescued this cat. He's like a little one." And she was a cat lady, and she was like, I was like, what do I name this cat? And she's like, well, Michael, you better name him Lucky, because he's lucky that you pulled him out before they started that car. So I always had like a love for dogs. I remember a couple of times I came home with these dogs that were loose on the street that I found. They all got returned to their owners, but I never forget there was this one Choco Lab that I was obsessed with. He was he gave paw, he sat down, he laid down, he was so well behaved in the house, and my father was like, this is somebody's dog.
Yeah.
So I went around the whole neighborhood, and then I started to see missing posters. So I took them all down. So nobody knew whose
So that
dog it
you
was.
could keep
Yeah,
the
so I was
dog.
walking around with the dog, and then we had the dog for like 3 weeks, and then when we brought it back, we reunited it to the family, and it felt good doing that.
Yeah.
But
What
like
was
I
that
always,
like seeing how happy the
yeah,
people
just
were?
like they were happy, but the dog was even happier.
Oh.
So it made me feel good. Like, thanks for letting me have your dog for 3 weeks.
But that's interesting because, yeah, obviously it made you feel good and gave you a taste of what it's like to see how excited
Yeah.
a dog is and how to treat a dog really well.
Yeah.
So, okay, so what made you want to start your foundation?
So I was, like I said, I was lost and I was broken. I knew that when I changed my life that I had to make a complete change. So on March 26, 2016 was my first day of recovery.
Okay.
And I started to search, like, what's going to work for me. And I spoke to this guy, Austin, his name is Sober Evolution. He's the only one who answered me. And I said, hey, listen, man, I've been running for 13 years and I just need some advice. Like, what do I do? And he was like, listen, if you're not going to go to a program, he's like, you could do this on your own. He's like, it's going to be very difficult, but if you want it, you could do it. He's like, I recommend that you find some type of motivation that works for you. You need to listen to it. You need to process it. You need to think about your life. And I started to search motivational speeches because I never listened to it before.
Sure.
And I remember that there was like the first three of them. The first one was like this Poindexter white guy, and I was like, there's no way he's going to inspire me. And the second one was called Legacy. And it looked like a guy, like 50 Cent on the cover, this black, shredded man. I was like, what is this? And it's a speech by William King Hollis. And that speech changed my life. Right there, it said, word for word, when you work for a purpose will work for you. So knowing that I had to find a purpose, I searched for one. I started to do some volunteer work, working at a shelter called Husky House, and I started to volunteer for a place called Goats of Anarchy.
Okay.
Right? So when I was up there, I was working with sheltered dogs and then also sanctioned animals. So when I seen the difference in it, I started to feel at home, but I started to feel more home on a sanctuary than in a shelter.
Explain the difference.
Well, shelter is ran, the rooms are, when I look at a shelter, it's cages, it's bare, it's cold, and there's just a couple of people there. Most people don't want to be there. No matter what they say, it's a job for them, or they're volunteering because their wife's volunteering, or you just say they come for the first week and then they lose the love for it because they see it. It's not easy to work in a shelter system. It's heartbreaking.
Right.
You leave there, like you said, you rescued your first dog. After one day, you were crying.
Yeah.
Do you continue?
And I still hate to think about
the
dogs that
but would you like to go work there for the rest of your life? Like, it would be miserable.
No.
So when I was in a sanctuary, it's just different people, but the animals are so much better taken care of, and it's done with love. Husky House is done with love, and everything about Husky House is a great shelter. It's not the ACC, but it's just still a shelter environment. You know what I'm saying? So when I started to get involved and I started to feel at home and I started to feel accepted, searching for a purpose, I wound up going to Husky House, and my ex asked me if we could foster a dog.